but it takes a certain type of person to be in a position of, for lack of a better term, desperation, right? You don't have friends and family money. You barely make it anyways, but you're showing up in this room in the best clothes you got to do what you got to do to try and get to the money. But it takes a certain type of person to like balance yourself and not seem desperate. Because it's like,
Act as if, yeah.
right, act as if, because this is a power dynamic game. And so if like you're looking like you need this stuff from them, it's no longer like a business exchange. Like you should be selling opportunity and they should be selling you capital. So if you're raising money and people ain't really trying to convince you to take the money, then the power dynamic is off. Right? There's something you gotta do to like balance the scales.
When you don't have generational wealth or a Stanford network, the startup game looks a lot different. For most underrepresented founders, the first challenge isn't building a product. It's finding a way into the room where capital decisions get made. James Norman and Sean Green have both been there. They've built companies from scratch, raised capital without safety nets, and now, through Black Operator Ventures, they're helping the next wave of underdog founders navigate the system, from validating their ideas and de-risking their first steps to mastering what they call the theater of fundraising. If you've ever wondered how to break into venture circles without losing your authenticity, keep listening. I'm Walter Thompson. This is Fund, Build, Scale. Fund, Build, Scale is for anyone who wants to build a company and not just talk about one. I sit down with founders, operators, and investors to unpack the real tactics they're using to build and scale startups. No platitudes, just practical insights you can borrow and try yourself. Subscribe to Fund, Build, Scale wherever you listen. And if you find it valuable, a rating or review really helps.
Sean, start us off. Why Black Operator Ventures, and how long you've been in operation?
Yeah, so we look at it as we're both founders. I've been building over the course of the last 15 plus years as a founder, as an operator. And when you look at the journey that we have to take, sometimes we don't actually get the right alley-oops to us along our journey. But we have to figure out what doors we have to crack open. And it came to a point where I looked in the mirror and I was just like, wow, look at the journey that I've been on. I've had some great successes, some good wins, built a great network. I typically over-index on network. Because like, look, your network is your network, but it's how all doors get open. And I was like, look back at my journey. And I said, look, if I've been able to do this and knowing what I've had to do to get there, and it's caused certain strife, caused certain turmoil, but I made it. I don't want the next founder who looks like me to have to go through that same type of journey. I just think we should be able to make it faster, quicker, help them accelerate faster. And I started being like, well, how do we actually go about doing so? And, as a founder myself, still building, I was like, well, let me have some conversations with people who I trust, my advisors, et cetera. And they're like, look, if you want to change the game for somebody who's coming behind you, the only way to do it is through a fund. And I thought to myself, well, how are we going to actually do that? And the people who supported my journey as a founder were like, look, we'll come in and support you. And that's when I pick up the phone and I call James. It's like, hey, we're starting a fund. And James was like, are you sure? And I'm like, well, did I stutter? And we both, he's the guy where like you put a challenge in front of him. Once he says yes, it's go time. And we both stayed up for 48 hours straight. We both got families, so we had to have some negotiations internally, but we stayed up for 48 hours to build our first deck because we were that serious about what we wanted to undertake. And the efforts that we wanted people to be able to see and have them understand that through a particular storyline. And so we built out the deck, made sure that the message that we wanted to get across was clear, but we also knew that it was going to take a lot of work and we're going to have to pull people alongside our journey who supported both of us. And so that's how it started. That's how it happened.
Yeah. And, it was kind of like, there was some calculus to be done as to why we would do it at that point, because we are running our companies, but then, it was kind of like, well, we're a couple steps ahead of people we're backing, right? So this gives us a very unique lens in how to help them. Mm-hmm. But then also just like statistically, the numbers were glaring, right? So like we came into it as like, this is what we want to do. This is our passion, but then like, at that time we had made a database of all the Black founders who had raised venture capital. And at that time, it was 330 in the history of time. And like you're talking about, if I went back to when we started our companies, it was like 80, but half of those were from the dot-com boom, and another like 40% of those were like life science and biotech. So it doesn't even count to me.
Mhm.
Like it was like a very small percent of Black people had built tech companies with venture capital, right? So it would feel better to know that back then, and then move forward. You're like, it was 330. It's like that's still nothing, and so like there's a massive arbitrage opportunity in that, right? Unless you believe that Black people are functionally not capable of building tech companies, which would be wild because we dominate in so many other industries, right? There's a massive arbitrage opportunity there. And we look at statistics of like how fast fully funded Black founders matriculated to downstream funding. It was 2 times faster than their white male counterparts. It's because we're probably building a more viable company that's making more revenue and like fully funded, we can move at speed like we're supposed to. But if you don't have, we just realized if we don't have full rounds of funding at the earliest stages, it's not really possible to create the terminal velocity that's needed to like get a Series A. And once you get a Series A, now you're probably actually in the game of potentially being on the way to venture scale. There's many more steps to go,
Mhm.
but like, in the meantime, it really framed up all the headlines we were seeing, right? They raised 2 million. Ooh, they raised 4. Ooh, they raised 10. This is nothing. Like this doesn't get you to an Uber. Like there's so much more to go. And so, we decided to lean in and build out, what we thought would be the best solution to both getting the returns, the arbitrage for the LPs, but also creating the opportunity for people like us to be building more companies.
So how much time passed between building that deck and cutting your first check?
A year? About a year? Yeah.
Where are you looking for opportunities right now?
We both have experience in SaaS, vertical SaaS, and so obviously we're akin to that, and like seeing when a founder understands their industry better than anybody else understands their industry, and listens to the customer, understands their pain points, what keeps them up at night, and knows how to build. And so we typically will look at that, but we're pretty much agnostic in terms of how we focus. We don't really do hardware or a lot of consumer or things like that. But other than that, we're now very focused, as everybody else is, on AI and people solving complex problems, leveraging software in hand.
Mhm. Typical check size.
So we typically lead seed rounds. That's like our game. I always like to say when I'm talking to people, like, so they invest in Black founders, do they? Do they lead seed rounds? Or if you do not lead rounds, you do not invest in Black founders. That's just functionally true. You'll be sitting around committing to things till the end of time. So we lead seed rounds. We set the governance both operationally and technically. Average check there is about 1.2. And then we selectively co-invest at the pre-seed, people we know for a long time. So those people are like Precursor, Mac Ventures, Slauson, Zeal, a series of people we've known for a number of years.
Mhm. We chatted earlier in a pre-interview, and you said you're looking for founders who are building, I think the quote was, real world solutions with few regulatory hurdles. Can,
Oh
can
yeah.
you can you unpack what that means in practice? Give me a couple of examples. What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, when you're in fintech, there are certain hurdles to pass, particularly when you're implementing your software within an enterprise. Everything from like a SOC 2 to just KYC, KYB, these different you know, different regulations and whatnot. But those are passable and like manageable. And it's just something that that you have to do within fintech. When you
Mhm.
start diving into things like hardware that interacts with people's health and things of that nature, you have to go like get FDA approval or things like that. That's when it kind of goes out of our realm because we don't have experience in that process. It's interesting because when you do have experience in that process and you understand markets, what solutions are needed, you get a pretty wide moat by being able to run that process and be ahead of everybody else. So there's a world where like down the line when we build up that muscle and expertise within the team, it would be interesting. But currently, like it's a little bit too risky for us because we just don't know enough about the process.
Do you use it mostly outreach, or are people coming to you? How do you connect with founders for the most part?
Well, we're both, on the circuit. We're both traveling as founders and obviously as VCs. And over the course of our tenure, a lot of people know us. When we step into the room, people greet us, say their hellos, we dap up, all of the good things because they've seen us on our journey And again, we've had to build and fortify these relationships over time. And uh, founders who are in the room who built alongside us, they know us, and then they're like, oh, these guys actually now have a fund.
Mhm.
You know, we've been building as founders with others, but they're now cutting checks. And so that's a different type of conversation that comes up, especially when somebody who looks like you is like, hey, these are those guys.
Yeah, I mean, even yesterday we was at Bank of America has out the Ritz or whatever, and we went to just get a drink and ran to a black founder. We actually have his deck and we're evaluating his deal. And he was like, "Hey man, what's going on?" He's like, "You didn't tell me you're a VC." I was like, "I could have sworn I told you." He's like, "I just know you're a founder."
Huh.
So shoot, I didn't know who I was talking to. He was like, I definitely want to work with you. Like, it's like from his standpoint, he's like, I really like that guy, but wait, he actually knows he builds companies, helps people build and like invest. I want to work with them. Like it's a no-brainer. Um, so we've had to find ways to express that to our investors because in the current market, we're in a particular moment in time right now for those who aren't aware. Like San Francisco has like over 1,000 like legitimate AI companies being built right now, and like 10,000 who think they're building something, right? Like
Mhm.
there's lots of stuff being built right now, and the world is changing rapidly every day, and the rest of the world doesn't feel it yet, but they will. And so my point is that like right now it's really competitive to get in great deals, right? But for us, what we do, it's not competitive for us because people know what we bring to the table and what we can help them do down the line. So it's really a matter of like, did we cross paths and it's the right opportunity for us to invest in? Or if it is, we will lead that round.
I talk to a lot of investors, and they always say, best way to reach me is a warm intro. Like everyone
Mm.
says it, like wherever they are based, everyone always says the same answer. And I'm not questioning that, but I kind of wonder from my outsider perspective, is that just basically like the first test? Like you can actually
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
is it
So
okay?
from from the onset, right, that warm intro, definitely seems like it's a great idea because you got somebody who's vetted. We they've known me for a while, and now they're sending me, hey, you should take a look at this, or a founder has reached out through this particular person. But when you let that sit for a minute, and you realize that our communities are far from that warm intro. They've not built networks. If you look at their Venn diagram as a
Yeah.
human does not overlap with another Venn diagram with another human. That center point is not, we don't have an intersection, and so I can't get that warm intro. So that actually shuts us out, and it's another gate that we've got to figure out how to penetrate, to be able to have that conversation with said VC. And so yes, the Orman show does work in certain elements, but it also we have to actually step back and also be open to a cold conversation
Right.
that you're picking up off of LinkedIn, off of a DM on Instagram, off
Hmm.
of somebody who's like, hey, I just think you should meet this guy. I know I just met you at this cocktail, but here's the founder that you should meet.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so it's some legwork, right? It's legwork other people aren't willing to do. But it's got to be done. You know what I'm saying? I will say like there's a couple people in the portfolio who just like came in through the website. You know what I'm saying? But the website's kind of structuring the information you're going to give us. So I'm not going to get an email that looks wrong. You're going to give me all the information that I want, and then
Mhm.
that allows us to like assess whether or not it makes sense to have the conversation. But there's also people who we have a guy in the portfolio. Like I never even thought about this because it's been I can't think back to when I wasn't in this space. It's been so long. But like, he's in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the country and he's like, I gotta get to Silicon Valley. I just know tech is it. And so he just started watching lots of YouTube videos of Stanford and all that. And Stanford has all kinds of people come through there and do talks. There's a VC he wanted to talk to at Clarence Perkins. And this is Clarence Perkins. When you're not in the valley, you hear about Andreessen and Clarence Perkins, Sequoia. You don't know there's like thousands of other of these people.
Right.
You just know about the big ones. You're like, I need to talk to them. And like, that's functionally impossible, right? Like, it sounds crazy to be like, I don't have a company. I need to go meet Clarence Perkins. I have an idea, right?
Right. Right.
But he doesn't know that. And so, like, he sees in the talk that the guy's email that he gave to the class was a different version of the email that's on the website. And he was like, but he told him, like, hey, if you reach out to me and you give me your favorite 5 books that you think apply to like business building, I'm going to set time with you. So he like emailed him. Like, I saw your Stanford chat. And he didn't say I went to Stanford. He said I was in the class. Like, I saw the chat. here's my favorite 5 books. I love 15 minutes of your time, your idea. And that dude gave him time and he flew out and he never went back. Like, he didn't get the money, but he's like, if I could pull that off, I'm built for this. I have to get out there. I'm going to figure it out, you know? Um,
It's yeah.
so there's angles to this, but at the end of the day, like that was a cold outreach that brought him his little Venn diagram circle closer to overlapping with something. You know what I'm saying?
I do. And let's just get into the social engineering aspect of connecting with investors and raising money. Because I think for people who look like us, my sense is it is like as you said, it's theater, it's performance. It's not necessarily people you know and just walk up to. And I guess for me, like starting from zero, right? Literally, if you're a black founder, you probably don't have like the whole friends and family round. Like we all know what that is, right? But I don't have a rich uncle. Like I don't. Nobody left me anything. So if I have a great idea that I think is commercial and viable and I've de-risked it somewhat, like, but I'm not starting from the same place as everyone else, right? So just right there, that whole friends and family round, like how do I cross that moat if I'm in this boat?
Yeah. So from a friends and family perspective, just like what you said, you know, we don't have families that have understood how you pass something down, right? It's like this generation that's actually learning more and becoming more financially literate because we're the first to attend post-secondary education, right? And first to have our network be widened by others that we're seeing. Oh, your family did this? Oh, how did that happen? It's how we've ended up on Martha's Vineyard and understanding how to make
Yes.
our way through there and learn how Black people are actually doing this the same way that our white counterparts have been.
Mhm.
What's important is execution is always key, and that's like the number one thing. Whatever you're building, whatever you're doing, you are the best at it. Nobody can challenge you on that because you know you're directional and you know where you're going. That's like number one. So once the execution's out of the way, now it's like I've got to be in rooms and I've got to figure out what are the rooms that I need to be in that are advantageous for the conversation I'm trying to have. And obviously, I'm trying to get investment. But I'm always like, look, there's two forms of capital. There's capital in the dollars I need my company, and then there's human capital,
Yeah.
which is,
Social capital.
I need that next introduction or that next person. And that's what you're trying to angle towards when you're in these rooms or having these conversations. And everybody knows all that is like, ask for advice, get money. Ask
Mhm.
for money, get advice. And so you got to have these things in the back of your mind as you're trying to navigate. But it's important to understand that even if you're in a small market, what are the communities around technology that's in your small market? When are they having events? When can you allocate time to be there? And what's important is knowing who's going to be in the room in advance of that time, figuring out your web of influence or people who are in your circle that are connected to those people in the room. So when you go in there, you have a plan of attack while you're in that particular room. And obviously, you want to know certain things that can allow you to have the conversation. But you just don't want to be in the room floating around.
Right.
You want to have talking points that you already predetermined that will resonate with this person. I don't care if it's what you had for breakfast. Like we talked about pancakes earlier on, or what your favorite hobbies are,
Right.
know what their favorite hobbies are, know what they're trying to do so that you can intersect and have a point of relevance to them because that'll make them open
Yeah.
up to you.
Okay, so you said a couple things there. That point of relationship's important. Like you can't, you will end up pitching people who do not look like you, right? Who come from very different backgrounds.
Mhm.
And like, it's not their fault really. Like people, like you come in the room looking like us, like white people will have like adrenaline flowing through their body by like sheer nature, right? They have to like be heighten themselves, right?
I can hear
Like
that car door locking.
yeah, like they don't know, like it's just it's in their DNA. So like you have to be able to kind of disarm the situation. And the best way to do that is find a point of relationship. So if you know what they're talking about and they can find that point of relationship, man, yeah, you are like me.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you.
I like pickleball too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that too, man. I played last week. Oh, you know them? Okay. Like it disarms people, lets them like relax and get calm instead of being like you're in your 5 levels of alert. They on three as soon as you walk in the room.
Hmm.
You gotta bring them back down to one, bring them back down to calm so they can like engage and use the front of their brain properly. Otherwise, they're not even properly processing information, right? So people have to like calm down. And then like there's also the piece where like in terms of getting in those rooms. Like I remember, like he was in a room in Toronto that allowed him to meet Brad Fell. Right, Brad Fell's probably not in Toronto all the time, but Sean stayed in the rooms, and like now he's known for a number of years, and he's like LP in our fund, and like we're cool with them. But like you gotta stay in those rooms and maintain those relationships. So I think just like coming in, and there's one other piece that I missed though. You do have to come in prepared like that, but it takes a certain type of person to be in a position of, for lack of a better term, desperation, right? You don't have friends and family money. You barely make it anyways, but you're showing up in this room in the best clothes you got to do what you got to do to try and get to the money. But it takes a certain type of person to like balance yourself and not seem desperate because
Act as if, yeah.
right, act as if, because this is a power dynamic game. And so if like you're looking like you need this stuff from them, it's no longer like a business exchange. Like you should be selling opportunity and they should be selling you capital. So if you're raising money and people ain't really trying to convince you to take the money, then the power dynamic is off. Right. There's something you gotta do to like balance the scales.
Mhm.
And I think to cap off, you always forget how important the follow-up is. And if you're not following up in a timely way, you'll lose traction in the conversation. And so 80-90% of people don't fulfill the follow-up.
They don't follow up. I remember this girl, she's amazing. She has never built a tech company. I mean, I can't even get into her background. It's crazy. But she came to Houston last week to come to Transparent Collective, Venture 313, like AI house. And like she didn't know what an IDE was, a database was. She left that day ready to build her product, right? And I told her, I was like, you're a beast. Like you need to be in Silicon Valley. You can't be in Detroit. You gotta leave Detroit for a little bit, just get this through osmosis and then go back home. I was like, you can stay at my place, wherever you do, and like film me from a hole in the wall. She messaged me the other day, like long note. I can't believe it. I had amazing times. It's so dope. Like, what day can I come? Like, let me know like the stipulations, where I should show up, what meetups I should be at. It was the whole rundown. And I was like, thank you for calling me. Like, let's get on the phone call. Let's figure out the logistics and get you out here. You know what I mean? But other people would just be like, you run into them like 3 months, I run up to a year later, be like, oh man, I never came out. I thought, I should come, you know? And it's like, you're not serious. She's serious.
Yeah. You got to put yourself in the room.
Get yourself in the room.
I actually saw a person once actually at a cocktail party looking up someone's LinkedIn profile who was like a couple of feet away before he was like going to go talk to him. What are some red flags, I guess, other than the whole like they can smell desperation? What are some other red flags people can take off of themselves or try to?
Definitely going in and asking for money right away, right? You want to build rapport, build relationship, and yes, you need to get that capital yesterday. We all know that, but you can't go in and like ask for that dollar right away before somebody knows who you are, because it's like, hey, do you want to date me? Right? Nobody just starts, like, well, you want to be my girlfriend or boyfriend today? That's not how it works. Right? So we've got to go on a couple of dates and have certain conversations. I think another thing is not being able to have what you do.
I was going to say, if you can't explain what you're doing, like it's crazy. You start talking, well, I do blah 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 blah. It's like 5 minutes later, you're like, I don't know what you do.
Yeah, like you have to have a distinct one-liner, two-liner that gets people there in seconds rather than minutes, because you don't have a lot of time with these people. And when they start looking over your shoulder as to who they need to see next versus giving you eye contact and paying attention, you know that you've lost them, right? So you gotta make sure that you're definitely very focused. And another red flag is thinking that somebody else is going to overtake you in that, like, you're typically 2, 3, 4 people, in that circle talking to a particular investor, or maybe there's a couple people there. I think don't be afraid of those people, who are around you, thinking that they're going to take your shine. If the interest is for you, it'll be for you. But people kind of think about other people who are around them and be like, oh, now that James wants to go talk to this, now that he's talking to this guy, I'm not going to get that attention. So don't think negatively about your experience in that conversation because somebody else has that time with that investor. Because again, that's a red flag, and it just puts you in a mental space that is not going to allow you to be prepared to say what you need to say.
Yeah. Are we getting back to kind of the mental block you were talking around
Yeah.
fundraising? Yeah. I think the other piece is just like you're gonna get a bunch of no's, and like that is what it is, and then hopefully you're able to like ask for feedback and craft those no's into like different storytelling mechanisms and things of that nature. Like worst thing is to go out and be like, I told everybody what I'm doing, no one gets it. Well, if no one gets it, either it's worthless or you need to figure out how to communicate it better.
Right.
Right? Like that's on you, you know what I mean? And I just think that a lot of people don't think that part through, you know?
A question for both of you. How early is too early to be talking to a VC when you have an idea for something?
I don't think it's too early. It's just a matter of what conversation you're having. Like, you don't want to seem silly and be talking about nothing, but if you have an interesting idea, people love talking about interesting ideas. Like, because interesting ideas don't have a box. You know, I think we work so hard to figure out how many customers we can get, how much traction we can get, and all this stuff. And that's good. You're building a business, but like when it comes to like pitching VC, if you have a really strong idea and like you're the person to do it, you might be able to convince someone to give you some money. You ain't got nothing. Like now these days it's not possible because you can build anything with AI. So you should go build something.
Mhm.
But functionally, like ideas are great because it leads to interesting conversations, right? So if the idea is really interesting, people will talk to you about it for a long time. You know?
What's important though is that time is a resource that is finite, right? And so if you're gonna carve out that time to have with said VC or somebody who can commit capital, you want to make sure that you're using their time effectively
Mm-hmm.
because people will bucket you.
Mhm.
Hey, Sean, the time sink, but I don't want to spend time with them. Or you know what, that was a valuable conversation. I
Mm-hmm.
actually want to spend more time with you. And so you got to see which side of the aisle that you fall on. You always want to fall on the side of I'm providing value in the conversation, and that person's going to give me more of their time.
So ideas for kind of like tactical advice for how people can kind of de-risk and validate and position themselves before making that leap into the unknown. How do you do like that initial customer discovery process?
You got to carve out. Yeah, so the first thing is carving out your calendar so you actually have time to be able to engage, right? You have this idea, you understand where, what you're trying to do and the fact that this idea does not live in the world today. So how are you going to make this idea live in the world with which we operate?
Mhm.
You want to carve out time in your calendar. You might have a family, you might have other responsibilities, but you want to dedicate time because if the time is not dedicated in your calendar, then you're going to just haphazardly try and go about it, and you're going to waste your own time. Like we said, time one of your most valuable resources. Then you want to see who in your network this particular idea could resonate with, and that could be family, friends, or people in your corporate environment.
Mhm.
And then you want to sit down and ask those people or request time from those people to be able to sit with you with respect to like this solving a particular need or problem that they have today. And while you're in that conversation, you want to also figure out if there's one or two other people that they can make an introduction to for you to be able to then go further and deeper in terms of understanding if this is actually a vitamin or a painkiller. We all know vitamins, are not a necessity. But if if you can't walk on that ankle, you're gonna take that painkiller because it's
Mhm.
the only way you're gonna function. And we're all about the painkillers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, all that is correct. Functionally, uh, I've always, not always, not had a bunch of jobs or anything, but when I did have a job, I would take out like unsecured loan, right? So, I'd be like, all right, back when I was young, that's 20 grand takes me a long way. Take out 20 grand loan. All right, I'm cool for like, 4 or 6 months. I've already been like doing everything that Sean's talking about. I already started building the product. I need to go get it, see what I can do, raise some money, do an accelerator program or whatever. At no point in time did I not make it to where I need to go, right? And I just pay the loan back and I keep it moving. But the reality is like, if you feel like you don't have the financial wherewithal to do it, you can always go get some money and then leverage that as like a runway. And
Mhm.
if it doesn't work out, get another job, pay off the thing, try again. But you can create the circumstances for you to be able to like lead the full-time job. But I would say like the one thing there is a red flag. Don't come to your pitch meeting with a deck talk about, oh, I want to raise money. I want to be full time. Like, if you're building something and it's working, it's making money. No one needs to know, like,
Hmm.
are you working a job or not? That's irrelevant. If you're that's what you're gonna do, that's what you're gonna do. Everybody's gonna leave their jobs and get the money, then consider it done. That's not an important part of the story. Because you're gonna run into people who like, well, we like work people who are full time. That's a ridiculous thing. Like it's about the business and the people. You know what I mean? The people are amazing, the business is amazing, then enable these people to do what they need to do. You know what I mean?
You just brought something to mind that I think is probably true largely for truer for Black founders and other founders, let's say, which is the whole appetite for risk. Uh, I mean, I just there's a strong tradition of entrepreneurship in the Black community, but this is a different level of risk
Different
taking.
level of risk. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure what your own personal backgrounds were, but how did you create a framework for cultivating an appetite for risk?
Here's the thing. It's kind of like I can speak for Sean. Well, there's also the Jamaican factor. We can get into that, but the reality is like me and Sean were born this way. So like I can't speak for someone who goes to school and gets an MBA and learns about business and tries to go start a business because they saw something interesting. So they worked at Accenture. Like that's a different type of situation, and you like managing risk. For us, like the risk doesn't actually exist. We actually have to like try to see the risk because as you get older, you have wives and stuff, and like, what are you doing? You're like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. They're like, that sounds crazy, and they're like, oh, you're right, that does sound a little crazy. Maybe I should like think that through a little bit more. But in our eyes, like it doesn't seem risky because we're betting on ourselves and we believe we can do anything. So it doesn't actually exist to us,
Mhm.
right? But then there are people it does exist to. So like there's different profiles we profile of like, Black people are not a monolith, right? Yeah, we like building things, but we come from these different backgrounds and circumstances that either puts you in this like, position of like super high risk tolerance, moderate exposure to technology, low socioeconomic status.
Mhm.
Like, low such socioeconomic status, high exposure to technology, moderate risk tolerance, right? You got people over here, like good socioeconomic situation, moderate to low exposure to technology, like moderate risk, right? You got these different profiles, right? So the person who, comes from the, three generation, the very few, but people come from like the three generations of going to college and all that, whatever. Like, because we don't know about the whole passing down thing and all that, a lot of times, like they're not just running off with the bag, running a family office or something like that. They're working at Google and working at, whatever, and like making a good living and doing what the parents did. Right. The people in the middle, they're doing what their parents could never have done, but they also have to pay for their whole family. So
Mhm.
like that hurts the situation, right? And then over here, you might have a little bit of that, but funny enough, even if you came from a difficult background, um, your DNA is their DNA. So even though they ain't got much, like they kind of take care of themselves to some degree. Like there's people that might need a little bit of help in your family, but it's different. Like, my family ain't rich, but they're straight. You know what I mean? So like
Mhm.
I'm not in charge of that. Right. Like I'm in so like it's unfortunate I don't know if it's unfortunate, but like people have to understand go build a business that's great. Build a tech business, also great, very viable with AI now. But you want to do a venture scale business, it's not for everybody. And it requires you to have a certain circumstance. If you have to make $400,000 a year to support your family member and three other families, and you can't, build your company while you're doing all those things, or you just can't do it.
Mhm.
It's unfortunate, but you can't. You have to like create circumstances where you can go off and do the thing. You know what I mean?
Right. But you also have to be absolutely comfortable with the day-to-day uncertainty.
Right. And
Otherwise,
that's just part of the game, right? I don't think there's a way to teach someone to manage that. You just have to be willing to bet on yourself and know that there's going to be a downtime. Hopefully create some mental health practices for yourself to like manage those downtimes to get back to the uptime.
Mhm.
But for the most part, it's going to be a sinusoidal experience. Even when things are going well monetarily, things can be going crazily, like company culture wise, or things could be crazy at home because shit's going too crazy at work. Like anything could be going bad at any time. You have to be able to manage those things. So I think it is a matter of like being self-aware, communicating as best you can, and finding ways to manage your mental health so you can like go through these challenges.
And I suppose it's true that not every idea is going to be a venture scale
Right.
business, basically, right? So, So let's unpack that for a second. How do I actually vet myself to see whether, like, is this a lifestyle business that I can just do by myself or and bootstrap, or do I need to actually go and start beating the bushes and finding someone who can make this a unicorn? How do you know before you? Is it just looking at the TAM
Sometimes you
slide?
just, yeah, sometimes you just got to hit the pavement, right? You
Yeah.
got to hit the pavement. You just got to get after it. And along your journey, you'll figure out, right? Because the market does not keep things from you. It makes it very readily apparent if this thing is going to be a moonshot or if you're going to have to bury it, right? And think of what your next idea is. And so it's all about how you receive information and what you do with that information. Because you'll find people that when they receive that information and they don't pivot or they don't do it, then they go in that downward mental spiral, right? And they can't pick themselves back up. But if you're receiving that information and somebody's like, look, um, this is your beachhead and you're working on these initial setup customers, but it looks more like you're building for a molehill than a mountain beside you. And if you just make these decisions, then you can tackle that mountain of an opportunity versus the molehill that you're currently looking at. And so this happens by leveraging the people also that you have around you as you're workshopping your idea. You're the only one who knows it best. You can't take what people say, but you can use it as information variables that allow you to make better decisions with and understand if this is going to be that $1 billion business or if there's going to be this family owned operation.
Yeah, I was also gonna say this like I don't think it happens as much anymore, but there was definitely a long stint of time where like, folks would be like, ooh, well, yeah, I can tell you a little bit, but I can't tell you my idea. I'm like, you sound crazy. I went through this with my boy, our boy Martin. He's kind of part of the Black Ops team Emeritus, and he's been around us so much. He's a smart dude. He started building some technology around some like CRM or like doing some of the work he does. And he's like, no, I can't really tell you yet though because I figured I was like, bro, I promise you, I don't have time to build this, and I also promise you, there's issues with it. So if you talk to me about it, I can say, but no, no, no. I'm like, I understand where you're coming from. It's your pride and joy, but
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
believe it'll be your last great idea ever? Well, no, no, no. I'm like, well, does it matter then? It's like, what doesn't matter? I'm like, he finally, it took like back and forth like 6 times for him. Like, okay, well, let me lay it out for you. And all
hmm
of a sudden, I was like, let me give you some feedback there. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. But no, but then this. I was like, but then that. I was like, okay. Yeah. I was like, you need that. You can't just be sitting around a silo thinking you got some like great idea. The greatest ideas were not done in a silo.
No, they were
Nobody
done.
thought this shit through and like went out and did it. That's just not real.
Exactly.
Mhm.
It's such an important point because people are like code of secrecy,
Mhm.
around their idea. And if you are in your own echo chamber with
Yeah.
code of secrecy, you will never build that $1 billion opportunity because there are people who are around you who want to be able to support. But if they are blind to what you're actually building, they can never make that introduction. They can never tell you where to pivot. They can never help you understand, here are the challenges, that you're about to face if you just are like, well, I can't tell you certain things. Well, the certain things that you can't tell me is the reason why I can't help you business, right? And so,
Yeah.
very, very valid point. Don't
I gotta
ever,
see.
don't
I
ever
was
go.
I was gonna say I was trying to think the last time I saw a non-disclosure agreement, like in a job interview,
Oh yeah.
maybe like around the same time the iPhone was released, like 2007, maybe something like that. It's been a while. What are some early milestones or metrics or signals that show you when you're coming across someone and they're telling you about like the thing they're working on or the thing they built? What are some of the signals that show you, oh, they're ready for institution, they're ready for a check, they're ready for institutional outside investment to bring this to the next level? Like, are there signals like those, or is it really kind of a vibe thing you get after you actually do
There's
the due
there's
diligence?
signals. It's the signals come from the story, hopefully. I mean, there is the basic signal of, oh, they're making millions of dollars. Let's see what they're talking about. But millions of dollars don't mean it's a venture capital backed full company. So it just makes it more interesting to dig in and try and figure out why if they're not able to tell the story.
hmm
But in general, though, understanding who the team is, how big that market is, what the product is, and how customers have received it, and then because they've received it, they've been willing to pay this much money this many times over,
hmm
and then it's like, and no one else is potentially doing it in the way that you're doing it, and this ties back to what he's talking about in terms of knowing in the market more than anybody else, right? So if we see those components where it's like, man, this is the person to do this, They built the thing. People are already interested in it. It's showing a little bit of like people want to pay for it because they like it so much. And we think there's lots more people who would pay for it. And like the go to market is something that's viable. Um, obviously, I'm obviously speaking to this more through a lens of a enterprise company. When you think of a consumer company, it's different. Like having 10 users or 100 users or 1,000 users is worthless. Like you need like you need 10,000 plus people on something moving around to be like,
Yeah.
there's actually a profile of people that do this at scale. But it's really about the story of the people and the opportunity. Like, because the thing they're doing right now might not be the thing they end up at. So if they're the expert in the space, they're the right person to do the company, and the market's huge, you can kind of make a bet on what they're currently doing, but also bet that like when things change or they find that something doesn't scale, they'll make a pivot to go the right direction.
Mm.
Like those are all good signals to me. And then for us, there's also the importance of be able to support them on the journey, right? So if they're not coachable, if we don't know shit about that market, we don't know anybody who knows anybody about the market, like we're not going to get involved. Like we got some stuff in the healthcare space because we have a friend who's kind of again Black Ops Emeritus, uh, who's big in the health space, like Medicare, value care king. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So we can play in that space because we have access to him. You know what I mean?
Got it.
So yeah, we try and make sure we can help people. We can't help you. It's unlikely you can fully understand the opportunity if we can't help you.
Do you work with solo founders?
Oh, 90% of Black founders are solo founders.
Mhm.
So again, that's one of those gems for you. Like if you invest in founders, but you won't invest in teams of solo founders, and you ain't doing Black founders.
Wrapping up the last couple of questions here, but you mentioned a woman from Detroit who you encouraged to come out to Silicon Valley. Who should be here? Who needs to spend time in Silicon Valley to take their thing to the next level? The reason I ask is because it's a bit of a bubble. And so I wonder how well some of these things actually travel.
No,
Yeah. So, yeah.
The fact
that's the
that you're
point.
saying it's a bubble, you ever trying, like, we've got kids, and I see my kids blow that bubble, and that bubble just sits here, right? And everything stays within the bubble until it pops, obviously. But the point of containment is the key element here. And unless you have more and more people come and enter that, well, the information will never flow out to whatever city, or whatever borough, or wherever you're living. So you have to come into this ecosystem to
Mm,
be able to understand the pace at which things move, the information flow. And then if you're not trying to intercept any of it, and you're trying to do the thing, you won't be able to get to where you need to get to
Yeah,
unless you're on the ground.
you don't know what's going on. You're in Michigan, you're in Ohio, where you're at, talking about we're lit. We're making 100K ARR. That's happening every day here. Today, someone started a company that made 100K ARR. I don't know who it is, but it happened today. Right? Like that happens every day here. Making $1 million. Everybody making $1 million here. You know what I mean? Like that's not the thing. Right? The thing
mhm.
is the market, the opportunity, the product, your access to distribution, you as a human being. Like that's the thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so like you have at this point in time, if you're building what you intend to be a venture scale company, you're lying to yourself if you don't come out here. That's like saying I'm gonna be Tom Cruise. You ain't never been to LA. It's not real. Like there was a moment in time for like maybe a decade between like the last major recession and the pandemic, where like you could really operate anywhere. A lot of information had been disseminated. But
Mhm.
right now, the amount of new information being created daily, it's you're gonna be months behind of what's happening here. Like I was with a dude yesterday, ain't seen him in 15 years. He's an excellent computer science engineer. Went to Michigan with him. He's a CEO of a huge database company now and all that. Like he's nice with databases and data. I told him like the methodology I created like yesterday to build a product end to end without touching it, like purely agentic development. My computer was developing by itself for 12 hours.
Mhm.
Like he's like, this is why I come to the Bay. That's insane. I never even thought about how you would approach doing that. And this guy is smart and connected and running a company. It doesn't mean that, he don't know what he's doing. He's not here, right? So he came here to get that knowledge. Now he's going to go back. It's going to functionally change what happens when he goes back because now he knows you don't need more than a conversation to go back and execute it, but you got to have the conversation. So if you don't pop up in this space, you can know for a fact that you're not living in the current reality of what's happening here. You're not. You can't learn online. That's just the delay. It's happening
Okay.
here. Yeah.
No, it sounds like you're saying founders need to expose themselves to this kind of reality distortion field.
Right.
Like almost like a like
Because that's where the money's at, right? Anywhere in the world, everybody in the world has to come here to get that money, right? They get a little money in London. People get a little money in New York. New York has so much money that they use their throwaway money to play around in tech. They don't actually play in tech. Like San Francisco's tech. So like, it's like you want to play this game right now in this current
Mhm.
moment in time. This is one of those, at my age, I've had two now. Maybe I'll see a third one in my lifetime, but you're not going to see more than three moments in your life that are like this. So if you think you're doing this thing right now, you got to catch a plane ticket out here. I got a guy just show up to my condo today. I got tired of talking to him. He was in Detroit and he was like, I don't know, like I'm done. I'm doing AI, but I was like, go buy a plane ticket. Get out here like next week. I don't want to talk to you about this anymore. Just like come out here, experience this, talk to some people, move around, and see how your life changes in 7 days.
Wrapping up, where do you think the next wave of underdog? You know what? Actually, I'm going to skip that question. I was going to ask you where you think the next wave of underdog founders are going to come from, but they're coming from every place, basically. So, I mean, that's my impression. Am I wrong
Well,
about that, or?
I'll give you my point of view. My point of view is that um, I don't know if I have time for this little analogy, but I love my analogy. So here we go. Ready? I have three cars. We all drive in a car, right? You have a Tesla S, and he has, Mercedes AMG, and I have a Toyota Camry SE, right? I got 300 horsepower. You got like 500. You got an electric car, good, right? We go get in the track and race. I don't know your history, but I've raced many cars and built many cars, right? So I might have to work harder, but I'm gonna win that race, right? I might only beat you by like half a second, but I'm gonna win. Okay. Now, we all have Ferraris. You got a 458, I got 458, 458. Hit the track. Now I'm going to lap you because taking a turn at 120 miles an hour takes a certain level of conviction and understanding of a car.
Mhm.
So now I'm flying, right? So in that situation, we all have the same car, but we're different drivers. My expertise happens to be in that particular thing. So right now with AI, we all have Ferraris. And typically, that's been a monopoly. The monopoly for that's been Silicon Valley. But now everybody in the world can get access to a Ferrari. They can hop in the driver's seat. The question is, how much expertise do you have? How much lived life experience do you have to whip that car around, right? And
Mhm.
so, from our standpoint, Black founders most of the time are building companies through the lens of a lived life experience and a certain amount of subject matter expertise. And so, in this case, we have the opportunity in our community to 10x ourselves with AI in ways that other people can't. So you look at OpenAI, that is a building of amazing people with lots of credentials and lots of engineering background. They are mechanics, amazing mechanics. But mechanics don't get out there and tell Lewis Hamilton I'm about to go drive the car next week. They don't do that. They don't go to the McLaren, don't be like Lando Norris, man. I got it this week. No, because that person's the expert in navigating the thing. See what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So right now, I believe we have access to the largest population of underdogs, right? Like historically, we have fulfilled your needs in terms of your entertainment. We fulfilled your needs in terms of your sports. You know, we fulfilled your needs in terms of the clothing you wear and the culture you love and buy towards. In this moment, we'll fulfill your needs in terms of the software that you need to live in the future. And so I think there's a massive underdog opportunity in the thing that we do best.
I'm glad I put it out there. Here's my last question for you. For listeners who still feel outside the network, what's one action they could take this week to get themselves more plugged in, more connected?
I think knowing who you want to connect to and then leveraging your access to the internet, whether it's GPT, whether it's Perplexity AI, scrolling to your LinkedIn, scrolling to your Instagram and DMs, and just figuring out who that one, two, three, four, five first people of influence that you want to be able to connect to. But you just got to put in that work, and it's literally at your fingertips. You can get access to somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, but you need to put that effort out to find out who that web of influence is and just start to create that mind map, of people that you can tap in with. And so that's the one thing that you can do.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing. And from like the functional like business building side of things, I think it's more or less like Well, that part's important too, not just to get to like the capital or to talk about your product, but also to figure out who else wants to do it with you.
Mhm.
Right? We do have too many solo founders, right? I know that people can do it, but you at least need to find someone else you can convince to be your first employee, right? Like you got to show that you can get out there and get. If you can convince people to come work for you and not be able to pay them that much, that means you're telling a story and talking about something that could be really interesting. If no one wants to do it with you, then it's not that interesting because people want to do interesting things. So I think that part's important. But then, like functionally from a product standpoint or as a company standpoint, I would say you know, learn to use, just keep learning to use AI better and better. Like you can spend time to like, structure a project or put together a chat agent or whatever in GPT that is about your market, your product, your thing. And you can generate like, synthetic users and like talk to them about how they might want to use your product. And it's not going to be the end all be all of your customer feedback, but you can begin to coalesce some ideas by basically interrogating what is the knowledge of the internet around the thing you do and
Mhm.
having a conversation with like, let me see what a VP of such and such in this space would say about using my product and have that conversation. Like just get to use AI better and better and kind of pressure test your knowledge of what you think you're doing is and then get back out there and talk to people as well to like understand what the size of the opportunity is, who wants to join what I'm doing, who wants to buy what I'm doing, who wants to fund what I'm doing. This all requires like a human component. And I think the key thing is the thing that I think Sean's probably always done well that I didn't understand or like I don't know, maybe even I might have not I can't say it was because of Sean, but somewhere in the mix, like I probably fully understand. I'm a builder. That's why he's like, oh, I call James and then it gets built, right? Because I build, right?
Mhm.
Um, I did not value the human connection part of things. You know what I'm saying? I was like, if I build it, ain't nothing to talk about. You know what I mean? If I did the thing I said, ain't nothing to talk about. But that's not true, right? Like, you can build a thing and sell it to a sample. Yeah, I found the other day, he's like, they're not understanding it, boom, boom, boom. And it's like, he's making mad money, right? He's like, I'm just going to show them. I'm gonna go get this money. And I was like, that's a cool thing to do, right? But functionally, you cannot personally sell yourself into $1 billion company. So like, slow down. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I know you want to build, prove game, show and prove. But that's not how this game is won. This is not a brute force, work 2 times as hard as the other person to get the outcome. That's not what happens here. And like we were taught that from a young age. Like, yeah, you gotta work 2 times as hard to get that outcome. You're gonna get it though. Not here. I can outwork a lot of people. It ain't give me $1 billion. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So and so like that's a mind that messes with your mind. Because you see other people who you know aren't working as hard, who know that they don't know as much as you do, who like you're looking at it from a face value of like that person is not as extraordinary as me, right? But that person went and did what he's talking about. That person knows people who knows people who's talking about them in other rooms, who's helping them, who got the bread to go figure out how to be a better person. Like they got the things around them to help them go do the thing. Like you can't look at it at face value and be like, I don't like that idea as much, and that person not grinding as hard as me. How to get that? Because it's not a grind-based outcome game. Not as far as like just building product. It is a grind, but like just building the thing and selling the thing is not what makes this thing tick. You have to have humans around you.
James, Sean, thank you so much for a really tactical conversation. This has been great. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Thanks for wanting to hear more about how we got here.
The Fund Build Scale theme was written by Michael Tritter and performed by Michael and Carlos Chairez. Michael also composed Ocean, the track you heard at the top. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and leave a rating. It helps more people find the show. You can get the Fund Build Scale newsletter on Beehive, follow along on Instagram, and if you have a guest suggestion or a question, reach me at fundbuildscale@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Fund Build Scale is a production of Truth and Soul Media, LLC.